My life be like, yeah. My life be like, yeah.
Good morning, I'm Paladin, and I come to you live/recorded from my bedroom on the fire department because I am on duty today, so I apologize for the poor audio and video quality. However, I am here, so let us get to talking. In this episode, we're going to talk about Star Augur Etraeus, who is arguably the 5th boss in the Nighthold, the new raid that came out, and this is going to be brought to you on Heroic difficulty, since Mythic is not out yet. Now, I don't have videos on the previous bosses yet, because I was out sick for progression with my raid team, but they did well, and they got us up to this point in time, trying to bring in the 3rd off tank. So let's get right into it. The fight for Star Augur Etraeus was kind of long for us at 7 minutes and 57 seconds for our first kill, about 40 seconds slower than the world's fastest, but not bad overall. It goes without saying that your role as a tank with any boss is to not die. Now, you're going to see here in this video that I was kind of an idiot, and I stood and fell flame because I was trying to get as much cleared as I possibly could. I didn't do a good job of avoiding fire, and I died. So that probably took about a good 5 to 6k out of my overall damage, because I lost my well-fed buff, of which I use haste, because my haste is slightly low, not terrible, but slightly low. So I did lose a little bit of damage there. In order to not die and or decrease incoming damage, I use Magnum Opus, which gives me that absorb shield every 30 seconds, a pretty good amount of absorb healing. I had a 13% overall uptime. I know it's not controllable, but it is still helpful. For my second trinket, I used Grotesque Statuette, which gave me a damage reduction, as well as increased mastery for block. My DPS build did, however, increase the damage I took per second to 414k, which, ouch, is twice as much as my bear tank, but because my healers are able to cope with the amount of damage that I have incoming, I'm okay with it currently until I need to start to move more towards a survival spec. I was able to absorb a total of 18% of the overall damage, which is pretty good. I could have probably absorbed a little bit more had I not been so DPS hungry with my Shield of the Righteous, but whatever, that's why I'm putting up this channel. For you, if you are going to run DPS prot build, expect to need about 300k external healing, so if your healing group can handle that, go for it. Kick the crap out of Etraeus, because being a DPS tank feels awesome, especially when you are like right on the heels of the 14th DPSer in your Mythic raid group. It's very fun to laugh, and when you beat them and say, you're not at the bar yet, you get to rub that in a little bit every now and then. So don't stand in fell flame like I did. As an idiot, you'll see here in the video, I did some stupid things, but they did pick me back up, and I was able to finish the fight strong. You're going to see linked now on my first parse for Heroic Star Augur's kill. I was able to get World 6th with 344k DPS with an activity uptime of 99.85%. So hitting those buttons pretty fast, and that's kind of one of those things that you're looking for. Always be hitting buttons, kind of like always be closing, I guess. Always be hitting buttons. I don't think I can term that. So for my rotation, let's kind of get into it a little bit here. My Seraphim uptime 51.35%, which is quote-unquote pretty close to perfect. I'm going to give myself a little bit more credit than I probably should, but keep your Seraphim uptime huge, because it's going to help increase your DPS. Run first Avenger for this fight, because it is a single target fight. If you run anything else, it's kind of pointless. We're trying to increase overall DPS, so Avenging Shield granted me 25% of my overall damage. Without first Avenger, I wouldn't have had that much. Consecration. As I stated in a previous video, always be standing in your consecration. It did give me 14.51% of my overall damage, but I wasn't always utilizing it as damage. As you see in the video that's currently up, my consecration, granted I slightly missed, was actually placed in square, and then I placed it again in diamond here right now, in order to make sure that I was giving that healing buff to the group that's there. So that's 6k per second for 7 seconds. I don't have any relics that increase my consecration time. Shield of the Righteous, because we should be standing in consecration when we're using it for damage. Shield of the Righteous gave me 8% of my overall, so pretty good. It will increase with tier, and I'll talk about that a little bit later. For you tanks who don't believe in using damage pre-pots, here are the numbers. For this particular fight, I got 6.04 million total damage from Potions of the Old War. Still unconvinced? How much damage has Unbending given you? Once again, bonus armor used to be good for us in Hellfire Citadel. It is only good for survivability now. Use Mark of the Hidden Satyr on your neck piece for enchant. It was able to give me 5.55 million damage, which, using potions and Hidden Satyr, I had over 11 million damage overall just by those two things. Now, as I stated, Grotesque Statuette was my survival trinket. For my damage trinket, I used Ursoc's Running Paw, which I have an 880 version, and that gave me 5 million for the dot because my crit is quite high for a tank, so every critical auto attack grants a dot of Ursoc's Running Paw, and I have that as a pretty darn good uptime. Eye of the Tier should be used on cooldown, except when we get into phase 3. We want to try to have as many adds around us as possible. Same thing goes for Blinding Light. Use it on cooldown until phase 3 when we have as many adds surrounding us as possible. To give you an example, Blinding Light was able to give me 1.09 million total damage. Pretty good for a spell that isn't really useful on a single target fight. Other things that we need to be utilizing is Ardent Defender for our Painful Truths. Now, Star Augur Etraeus, doesn't really strike us with melee, so it's kind of unpredictable. The most predictable damage we're going to get on our Painful Truths is when we're actually tanking the little ad. So it'll give us something, but just try to remember, keep it on cooldown. Now, in order to reduce the cooldown of Ardent Defender, one of the relics that I have is Preserved World Seed from Mythic Mythendra, first boss of Emerald Nightmare. So if you don't have one, go back, try to get a heroic kill, a mythic kill, a mythic cache in order to give you that Preserved World Seed. It does help. Now, how do we actually cheese mechanics? As you probably noticed from the video that's playing in the background, the way to do it is your off tank must taunt for every gravitational pull, every time. There's really no excuse to miss it. However, in the video that you see here, it was our first kill, so we're not quite in sync yet. In phase 1, you cannot take all of the gravitational pulls in phase 1 because of how it starts to come out and dropping the meteors. You probably could at this point in time, but we didn't want to chance it, so just take phase 1 and you'll be fine. Every other tank has done the same thing, but phase 2 and phase 3, your off tank can take every gravitational pull, they can clear the Fell Flame, and they can tank the secondary ad in the back for phase 3. Now, you're going to see that there were times where Fell Flame I had to clear, and that's obviously why I died as well, because we weren't in sync with our taunts yet. However, that just means our damage is going to go up throughout progression here. And then you're also going to notice that I tanked the third big ad because our damage on the second ad was a little bit slow, as you see coming up here on the video. So I had to take the third ad, but that was fine because I had enough aggro on Etraeus that all the tiny little ads followed me, so I was able to pad my numbers a little bit. Now, padding isn't that big of a deal because I still had a 97% parse in terms of overall boss damage done, which is the quote-unquote perfect damage for a boss fight. So padding in this fight, there isn't a lot of it because it's mainly single target. Now, how does your team play into you actually getting high DPS? Well, let's look at it this way. We're 40 seconds slower than the world's fastest, which decreases overall damage done per second because the longer you're fighting, the less uptimes you have of your big major cooldowns, and that's going to hurt you here. So the faster that they do it, the better. If we were to try to make a comparison between World First and my own kill, I would still probably be slightly lower than number 1 Prop Paladin tank, but he is also an 893 and I'm an 888. So I'm pretty excited, satisfied with that overall damage, even if we were to kill it at the same speed that they did. Lastly, let's talk about the tier. Now, getting a 2-piece for tier gear for Prop Paladin will grant us a 10% increase in Shield of the Righteous damage, as well as the reduction done, and increase our Light's Protector and Hand of the Protector healing by 10%. So 2-piece, really important. 4-piece, however, gives us a 35% chance to reset Light Protector and Hand of the Protector. If you're in a DPS build, it's obviously not that important because you're already waiting on your healers to heal you. So I'm going to go for a 2-piece and then stack Crit, Haste, and Versatility, since most of the gear in Nighthold is Versatility. If I were to get the 2-piece tier, I probably would have increased my Shield of Righteous Damage by about 1.5 million on this particular fight, so you can see that 2-piece is very important. So strive to get that. What your tier pieces are going to look like, I can't tell you because I don't know your particular legendaries. Hopefully this was able to help you in terms of increasing your Star Augur Etraeus DPS. I do hope that your healers can keep up with you because sometimes they get kind of angry at you. I was getting a few whispers telling me to please slow down on my DPS and worry more about my survivability, but whatever. Look at that, we got the kill and nobody was dead. So I wish you all the best in into Nighthold, sorry, and we'll see you on the next one.